Hi, Alex Fortey here, The Art of Simple Golf. Welcome, my friends. Today we're doing something that might not seem all that sexy for your golf game, but it is crucial. And when you implement these setup tweaks, steps into your game, I promise you the results will kind of blow your mind with your consistency, the effortless power that you're able to generate, and just how much easier your body flows. And you don't have to hit tons of golf balls to make these happen. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so here we are. Number one is about the head and the way you're tilting it. Most people, I'm going to try and keep all these pretty brief because I want you to at least apply one, perhaps two of them. If you can do all of them, fantastic, but I don't want to overwhelm you. And I'm going to give you a kind of an explanation of why it works, but not too in depth, okay? Just so you can understand why you want to try this and also just be able to easily implement it. So the first one is the head tilt. And what I mean by that is, excuse me, as we're setting up to the ball, a lot of times people just have their head dead straight down, okay? And what that does, it's sort of alluding to our brain, our body, the intent that we're trying to do, that we're trying to hit something this way. But if we open up our head a little bit, if we open up our mind a little bit to where we want the ball to go, where we want that target to be, we can do that because it's more how we're wired. If I want to throw something that way, I'm going to, try and see it either with my eyes or in my mind's eye. And that is the key, because if we're so focused down here on the golf ball, that's when the crappy swings come in and we just sort of attack it straight down and we get steep. Forget about sort of mechanics and all this kind of stuff for a second, just the intent, okay? So when you set up to the golf ball, if you have a little bit more tilt on the right side, just by tilting the head, so you feel like a little bit of water is coming out the right ear, okay? This is, I'm sorry if you're left-handed, try and reverse it. Just by doing this, okay, this slight head tilt, what that does, not only at setup, it sort of, I can now see in my peripheral vision where I want that ball to go. Because now my release can be a lot more intended that way, instead of down, buried into the ground, okay? That's the objective, that's the key. It not only does it help our intent and focus by giving that little tilt, you can see with the peak of my cap. But what happens as well, if you're too straight on with your head pointing straight down, a lot of times when we move off the ball, the head will sort of do this kind of action through impact, or at the top of the backswing, it sort of moves around. Again, sort of losing that peripheral vision, so then we can only reroute back at the ball. Whereas if we set up with just a little bit more tilt, opening up our mind's eye and our peripheral vision, when we make a backswing, it more or less stays in the same place, and then through impact, it more or less stays in the same place, and then we can release through. It's basically trying to stop as much of this kind of movement going on. That's the idea. Because I see the same things over and over again with people, either in the setup with the head. So we're just trying to combat a lot of issues here, and the head does a lot of that for you. And that sort of moves into my second point. A lot of times people have just too much weight on the right side, okay? Too much weight on the right side causes to hang back, and then we either sort of sway off the ball a little bit and there's a long way to come back here, or if we start with too much weight on here, it's a little bit harder to turn behind it, and we kind of get this narrow look. So the setup we want to do is have a lot more, especially with the irons, just more weight over on the left side, 60-40, okay? Because that is going to help us make a rotation that is around, We don't have to move off the ball quite so much. We still, you will naturally move a little bit to the right and then come back forwards, but we're just trying to make sure that we're minimizing the effort, minimizing the damage, whatever it is. So just try and stay a little bit more weight on the left side and maintain that tilt with the head, okay? And that brings me to the third point, which is in essence the right elbow. We really want to feel through impact that this elbow is sort of throwing and having a good energy through the ball. Just like you would throwing an object, the elbow would want to lead. Now too often we set up with this right arm on top this way, which is either going to cause this pulling in action or picking it up here. So what we do, we stand up a little bit straighter, we put the arm out, okay? Dead straight here, you can actually look this way. We put the arm dead straight out, we turn it underneath, so I'm kind of doing a bicep curl this way, all right? Now I turn my hand over, keeping this elbow there. Now I place my arm down, and that's how I grip it. And what that's doing, okay, what that is doing is enabling me, as I make my turn, this elbow just to fold ever so naturally. So you don't really have to think about it. And this setup is just going to make it that much easier to make a turn, but also through the ball. There's a lot of good things that happen when we have the elbow working together, pointing sort of further straight down instead of up here, which it can do when we're like this, okay? We want it to be down here, which is going to give us that consistency. So it's a dead simple drill. I'll take you through it again, but this is kind of like a checkpoint. So arm straight out, turn the arm over, so we're this way, then turn the wrist over, because that's where the grip is. So we do it here, we turn, and turn that hand over, okay? That then is going to enable us to make a much easier backswing and that arm to fold. Dead simple, right? So number 4, I think it is, we're on now, is ball position. Too often people just have the ball far too far forward. Ironically, they usually have the driver too far back and the irons too far forward. Maybe that's because we're trying to help the ball up or whatever it might be, but the simplest checkpoint is put the ball in the middle of the stance over the sternum. That's where you want to be every single time as a good checkpoint. And the width of the stance varies depending on the club you are hitting, okay? That's basically all that changes. So your checkpoint is that over in the sternal notch, right in the center of my chest here, okay, straight down. Is that where the ball's going to be? And that is a good checkpoint to have. Just so notice, are you a little bit too far forward? That's going to cause lifting a little bit. Or you might be a little bit too far back, which causes a little bit too much sway off the ball, or a little bit too much slide this way. So kind of having that neutrality is going to help you a ton. All right, so there's your little checkpoint. So the final one, okay, is talking about where you're set up. I'm going to show you from this angle. Again, too many people are way too far back, sat on their heels here. Too far sat back. And what that does, if we're here, it usually means that we're going to come through, hyperextend, and lose this space. We've kind of started with a lot of space to begin with, but this isn't athletic. We're on our heels. We're trying to create these, angles this way. We're trying to create these angles, but they're just too accentuated. And from there, that's not an athletic movement. That causes us to do sort of action a little bit like that. So a very easy, dynamic setup to have that's going to give you a bit more poise, a bit more athleticism. And the checkpoint is just make sure your tushy line is caught at the back. So we pretty much want the tushy line to be against the back of the heels here. That's probably going to make you feel a little bit taller, bringing the pelvis a little bit closer to the ball, but it's giving you a more neutral position. We can still sort of stand over the ball as the clubs get shorter, But the lower body, we want to pretty much have the same kind of action. And there's your checkpoint. The butt of the club to your derriere, back to the heel, okay? That's going to give you the neutral position, all right? And that's pretty much it. There is one final kind of bonus tip I'm going to give you. And I've talked about it a lot in videos, but when I do swing reviews on the lessons tee or online or whatever it might be, I would say 85% of the time, I ask people to turn their right foot out. Because when we're straight up here, this limits our ability to turn, okay? Just by opening up this foot, it allows a better rotation, a better hip lift, a better core rotation, and easier backswing. And I think you want that. So if you don't believe me, just try it. Even get up out your chair now, wherever you're watching this. Get up out of the chair and see how you feel. Just make a swing, even without a club. How much can you turn when you've got your foot locked in? Now, do it with the foot turned out. See just how much more freedom and rotation you can get. That's pretty much it. So there you have it. There's the tips for you. If you liked it, please leave a comment below and like the video. That's it. If you have any questions, leave those below as well. And there is a really cool link to a cool series as well to help you with every facet of your game, and it is free.